Hello there everybody, Sabata here, and welcome back to Tokyo Babel. Sorry if I sound a little, not too good. I'm guessing those heart attacks had quite the effect on me. Let's just say the, weather's not been too kind on me. Not to mention the allergy season just kinda sucks. So, I'm kind of hopped up on cold medicine, and we're just gonna see how long I can record to this point. Ugh. And so with my hand in hers, she flew into the sky slightly ahead. I couldn't tell why, but she never turned around to look at me. To reach the hospital, we had to descend all the way to the second stratum of Tsukiji. A long trek down awaited us.
東京バベルでいうところのここは第7階層に当たるみたいだな。
そうだね。第6階層は神田だったはず。急ごう、お兄さん。ねえねえ、第6階層にもやっぱり誰かいるのかな？カマエルみたいなの？
Wouldn't that suck?
いないといいね。
I had a bad feeling about that, and more than usual my bad feeling would find itself reflected very accurately in reality. For starters, I prepared for the worst. We found the doors leading to the floor below and took another step closer to the bottom of hell. You know, I just found it interesting how we have to go down floors to get to hell in this Tokyo Babel, but we have to go several floors up to get to heaven. Interesting. Oh god, a fake Raziel.
どうする？逃げる？
逃げても仕方ないだろう。
The girl, her wings stretched far apart, tablet in hand, regarded us with vacant eyes. God damn it. Talk about Murphy's Law.
これがせめて本物だったなら、命をかけて説得に当たるのだが。
ああ、偽物だから殺すことを前提にしなきゃいけないよね。確かに辛いや。お兄さん、変わろうか？
I shook my head. I chose to go to hell out of my own volition. This was part of the punishment for my blasphemous decision.
僕が殺す。君はそこで待っていてくれ。
Oh boy.
ケルベロス、サマエルを頼む。
With that, I flew up into the sky. Raziel, of course, noticed me and proceeded to attack. I discarded sentimental thoughts and concentrated on taking her life, preferably as quickly as possible. I didn't want to soil my memories with her blood, even if it was that of imitation. The sole thing that still gave me relief was that she was mute. She didn't scream for her life. I felt as if my heart would burst with each consecutive strike. Thoughts dulled my movements for a moment, and she didn't miss that opportunity to take a chunk of flesh out of my shoulder. My opponent was Raziel, one of the 7 highest-ranking Master Angels, the herald of God's secrets and possessor of incredible magical powers. Definitely not a foe to be taken lightly. Don't slow down. Keep your eyes on your target. She's a fake. Kill her swiftly and feel not a hint of regret. I summoned a silver line with the Bacati sword. It extinguished the flames that the fake Raziel had launched at me. She froze for a moment. I didn't miss the chance. I gave in to my fighting spirit and killing intent, abandoning conscious thought. I swung my sword. It caught her by the neck, severing her head from her torso. She fell. I grinded my teeth. The exercise left a terribly bad taste in my mouth. I couldn't feel happy about my victory in the slightest. Who would?
お兄さん、大丈夫？
休暇が欲しい。
I let out a sigh.
じゃあ少し休もうよ。ほら、喫茶店があるし。
She pulled on my sleeve, but I refused her invitation.
いや、先に進もう。立ち止まれば止まった分、辛くなりそうだ。
わかった。複雑な人間関係だね。悪魔関係？
Leaving the 6th stratum behind, we pressed further on. The 5th stratum, the 4th stratum, the 3rd stratum. We ran into familiar faces on each and every one of them. Belial, Lucifuge, even Astaroth. Later, a few other copies of Camiel and Raziel appeared again. Killed them all. I condemned them a mockery and eradicated them for blocking my path. Oddly enough, though, I ran into Adam and Eve here. No copies of Lilith and Samael ever showed up. Samael gave me a pained look, but she needn't have worried. Everyone I killed is a fake, a mockery of their true self. It felt nothing like killing the real ones. And so we finally reached Tsukichi district on the second stratum, only a little bit further into the hospital.
これで病院間違ってたらどうしよっか。
ひとしきり悔し泣きしてから考えるとしよう。
お兄さん、なんだか面白いね。
Samiel let out a small chuckle. I cocked my head, confused by her statement, and she followed with something that made my spine freeze.
なんだかノリが軽くなった。まるでリリスが映ったみたいだよ。落ち込むな。膝をつくな。前を見て歩け。
I chose to believe I was still alright. This must have been an effect of having spent long hours together with Lilith. The phenomenon was of little concern and didn't last long. She had a very memorable personality. Anyone would have been affected by her after some time together.
まあまあいいじゃない。好きな人に引っ張られるのは自然の感情で。
She let out a surprised scream in the middle of another shocking declaration and pointed up at the sky. I followed her finger and froze. Who the fuck are you? Lilith? No, the girl before my eyes was obviously much younger. She had the same face, but everything else seemed like a shrunk version of the woman I used to know. The girl chuckled and proceeded to run across the sky. That smile looked like hers.
追いかけるぞ。
We went after the girl in the sky. Okay. She was much faster than she looked. She didn't fly. She literally ran through the sky, or rather, skipped through it nonchalantly. Yet we couldn't quite catch up to her. The distance between us remained the same no matter how fast we pursued. A sort of frustrating anxiety filled my heart.
白ウサギならぬ黒ウサギ？穴に入り込まれたくないな。
Samiel managed to continue the small talk during our strenuous pursuit.
なら君はアリスか。そういえば服もそんな感じだが。
じゃあお兄さんは帽子屋かな？謎々とか持ってない？
この世界が謎すぎて、僕が持つ謎など存在しないさ。
The girl suddenly plunged down. We followed after her.
お兄さん。
ああ。
The building the girl had entered seemed to be the very place we were looking for.
病院にたどり着いたらしいぞ。
Complete silence shrouded the white corridor. It had lights on, but not a soul waited for us at the reception. The smell of antiseptics permeated the air, but no doctors seemed to occupy the place. The two grimaced.
病院が嫌いなのか。
Well, Cerberus is a dog. They wouldn't like veterinarians or just hospitals in general.
注射嫌い。
Thank God, at least you and I have the same opinion about shots.
痛いの嫌。
The two seemed not to mind pulverizing my image of fallen angels and hell beasts. I spotted the girl skipping down one of the hallways. I went after her, but as I rose up the stairs and then I saw her ascend, she seemed to disappear.
あれ？こっち？
I stopped. The girl was now at the opposite end of the corridor. She gave me a light chuckle. Changing directions, I dashed towards her. I tried opening the door next to which she disappeared this time.
病室だ。
A very familiar-looking room. Just an empty room. It didn't seem like anyone had inhabited it in a while. A chuckle reached us from behind.
また背後になったか。
追いかけなきゃ。
I caught Samael's hand as she tried to pursue the girl again.
待て。落ち着け。おそらくいくら追っても捕まらない。あれがリリスかどうかはわからないが、多分僕たちをからかっているんだろう。真面目に追えば追うほどに損をする。そういうことだ。
お兄さん。
Samael seemed to be flush red for some reason. Ah, I caught her by the hand. Right.
すまない。
I let her go. She drew her hand back and considered it for a few seconds with dreamy eyes. As I tried calling out to her, she promptly hid her hand behind her back.
ごめん。お兄さん、それでどうするの？
基本に戻ろう。病室を片っ端から捜索する。
病室を？
One could separate the inhabitants of a hospital into 3 rough groups: doctors, patients, and dead bodies. So as long as they were alive, they had to be either working or staying there.
患者のいない病院は存在意義がない。
But it could still exist without doctors. If someone was hospitalized here, we would, of course, eventually find them if we investigated all the rooms in the place. And so the 3 of us proceeded to check one room after another. Something hard suddenly hit the back of my head. It couldn't have been a bullet, but it still hurt quite a bit.
どうしたの？
何かが頭を。
刹那。
Cerberus poked a rock with his paw. I picked it up, feeling its weight. It was heavier than it looked. Huh? Iron ore?
お兄さん、あれ。
Oh. Samuel tugged on my sleeve. A girl glared at us from the opposite end of the corridor. Playfulness completely gone from her countenance, now she seemed rather irate.
サマエル、ケロベロス。
ポーチプレイ？
I guess so.
そうだ。どうやら彼女のおかげで目的地を突き止められそうだ。
My words proved true. With every correct turn we took, a rock would fly our way. And she couldn't hide her smile whenever we'd go the wrong way.
ああ、なるほど。やりたいことは分かったけど。刹那、頭大丈夫？
He wasn't trying to insult me, it's just that my head ended up being the bullseye of a whole bucket of rocks before we could reach our destination. The projectiles were surprisingly heavy and flew at such a speed that I couldn't react fast enough to dodge or block them. She was definitely enchanting them. I mean, they whizzed through the air like bullets and would pierce all the magical barriers I tried to set up. When I tried covering the back of my head with my hands, they started crashing into my back and buttocks, which made the torment worse. And so I had to give up and make peace with the pain in the end. The particular vile thing about the whole ordeal was that she seemed to be able to read my mind to an extent, and would always wait to launch a rock at me when I least expect it. Still, all ordeals had their end. The moment we tried opening the doors of one particular room, a whole volley of rocks descended upon us. Even the other 2 didn't escape unscathed this time.
いくらリリス幼女バージョンだからってやっていいことと悪いことがあるっての思い知らせてやる。痛いよ。燃やしてやるぞ。
Oh, Jesus.
その必要はない。ここで終わりのようだ。
I opened the doors. In a room identical to all those we previously saw, a slight change loomed.
あら、珍しい。お客様なんてどうしたのかしら、あなた方は。
The girl on the bed raised her upper body and considered us with absent-minded eyes.
リリス。
Oh. The girl I'd been searching for was right before my eyes. No, that wasn't right. I wasn't looking for this woman. We'd probably run into a different Lilith again.
リリス。君は幻影か？それとも本体か？
まあ、それを聞きに来たのですか？残念ながら幻影ですわ。
Well, this is not the Lilith we're looking for. The girl that kept throwing stones suddenly barged into the room and, pushing past us, stood between us and the bed. She stretched her arms out wide, threatening us not to come any closer.
リリス、この方々は大丈夫なのよ。
She patted the girl on the head, so the little one was Lilith too. The situation wasn't convoluted enough.
ここはいいから他で遊びなさい。
The girl nodded and, giving us a slight bow, left the room.
礼儀正しい。リリスじゃないみたい。リリスじゃないでしょ。
She let out a refined chuckle. As things calmed down, I borrowed a chair nearby and took a seat in front of the
本
woman.
日伺ったのは他でもない。僕が知っているリリスに関することについてだが。
どのようなリリスでしょうか。
自由奔放。
ネタに生きる女。サディスト。
ね。
マゾヒスト。面白ければそれでいいってタイプ。あら。 快なタイプですわね。
She let out an amused laugh.
そんな彼女がここに来れば答えがあると言った。
答え？
教えてくれ。君たちは一体どういう存在で何をしようとしているのかを。
She reached out her hand to me very deliberately, her cold fingers traced along my cheek.
そうなのですね。彼女はたった一人で戦うのよ。ヒーローっぽくてかっこいいでしょなんて言ってましたけど、あなたたちみたいな仲間がちゃんといたのですね。
She made a content smile.
ここに
She survived. She was alive. I knew she couldn't have died, but hearing a third person confirm her safety still filled my heart with long-awaited relief.
私たちは最後の安らぎを得るためにここを訪れる。言うなればホスピスのようなもの。
Hospice, an establishment caring for the terminally ill.
君たちは
力を失っています。幻影でありながら人格を持ったことによる代償として。
Oh.
人格？ねえ、知らないリリス。それってどういうこと？
A refined curl of the lips, not a hint of the energetic grin I was familiar with. A warm and caring, motherly smile. Ah, the two were definitely different. I could feel it in my heart.
あなたたちも知っているでしょうけれど、私たちは幻影でありながら肉体を持ち、人格を持ち合わせている。その人格は本体のエリスをベースにしているけれど、時に何か大きな出来事が起こると人格が引っ張られてしまう。
The death of loved ones, the death of the despised, love.
引っ張られた人格は決して元に戻ることはない。その時点で本体のリリスとはレゾンデートルから異なるものになる。真理は時の娘、欺瞞は闇の娘。真理を得たリリスはもはや闇の娘とはなり得ない。
Lilith's holograms were in fact undefeatable. You could try killing or brainwashing them, but all you'd ever achieve would be another Lilith getting dispatched to your place. She couldn't perish, and since she shared their memories, no one ever doubted that every copy was the same person through and through. But the truth was different. It was always a new individual that would manifest each time. It only wore Lilith's skin.
でもそうなると一つ問題が生じるでしょ。幻影が自己を確立させることで損をかぶる存在。
本体のリリス。
She nodded. An obvious problem in the current theory. What does the original do once her holograms grow
当
disobedient?
然本体にとっては許しがたい出来事です。アイデンティティを保有するだけならまだしも、独自のレゾンデートルを確立するなど。
Out of the question. It would be the moment her hologram would cease to be a copy of
ド
herself.
ッペルゲンガ
そうですね。自己を確立させたリリスはそう呼ばれる存在に近い。ドッペルゲンガー？
No, doppelganger. Doppelganger designated a person that looked like you and might take your place in front of your friends with little suspicion. Within the field of medicine, it was thought that cerebral tumors would sometimes show you mirages of yourself. Basically, it was a result of a deteriorating brain. Sometimes, however, there were stories about doppelgangers being witnessed by a third party. The phenomenon had a lot in common with ghost sightings. The difference was that if you let a doppelganger run amok for too long, it might eventually take your place in life.
本体もそれを恐れているのかもしれません。自己を獲得した幻影が自分になり変わるのではないかと。
自己を獲得したリリスは殺されるのか。
本体が下した資格によって殺されるか、力を失ってここに逃げ込むか。今までは2つの道しかありませんでした。
She pointed at the window. The young Lilith from before played outside with a few other girls of the same
彼
height.
女たちは無力であるがゆえに殺されることなく生き延びた。私は間もなく死ぬ運命にあるがゆえに生き延びた。
僕の知るリリスは
そして
あなたの知るリリスは戦ったがゆえに生き延びた。
I understood the mechanism of how holograms could cease to be copies, and what happened to the Lilith I knew. However, I still had many questions.
彼女が死を偽装した理由はなぜだろうか。
おそらく本体の目をごまかすためでしょうね。
The original Lilith was connected to her copies through their very soul. The holograms were like individual users, and the original was like a server. Information would flow towards the original, but not the other way around. If she spotted something odd with the personality of her copy, or if the link to the server was suddenly severed, she would dispatch her assassin right away.
粛清者はメッセンジャーと呼ばれる戦士。
Raziel of Thunder, turning into a tool of murder, she reaped Lilith like wheat. After all, she was known for her speed, being lightning incarnate. The Liliths could only either fall to her blade or flee to this hospice at the edge of the world.
でもあのリリスだけは違ったのです。彼女はとても勇敢ですね。あなたが惹かれたのもそういうところなのかしら。
さて、どうだろうか。
あ、ごまかした。
I wasn't glossing over anything.
リリスはなぜここに来た？
The woman made a stern face. Probably unconsciously, she also clutched onto her sheets with more force than before.
手段を求めて。
手段？
本体を打ち倒す方法を求めて。
Oh! Her countenance turned into a somber mask. Silence fell upon the room. I couldn't hear the sound of us breathing.
つまりリリスは本体を殺すつもりなのか？
彼女はそうするつもりです。
うわー、本当に自分を殺すつもりなんだ。
不可能だと言いました。所詮我々は影に過ぎない。大元である存在を滅することなど不可能だと。
それでもリリスは言ったんだな。
The woman nodded.
不可能？いやいや、これが意外とどうにかしてどうにかなるもんなのよ。
Lilith!
世の中には理不尽を打倒する人間がいる。彼にできて私にできないというのはなんか悔しいじゃない？まあダメでもいいのよ。ほんの少しあれの陰謀を立ち止まらせることができればそれでよし。短い生ながら面白ければそれでよしよ。まあ身の丈に合わないような感情も持てたし、うん。そう言い残して彼女は立ち去りました。
Okay.
彼女はどこへ行くつもりだ？
Lilith hesitated, but stealing a glance at my face, gave up, and confessed to me Lilith's destination with a sigh on her lips.
このオルタナティブバベルの最下層、銀座よりさらに下、第ゼロ階層、コキュートス。
You know, it's funny, I always pronounced it Cositis, but is it Cocytus? Well, I'm gonna pronounce it until somebody corrects me. Cositis, the river of wailing. The river at the deepest layer of hell, said to punish traitors. So Lilith was there now.
リリスはそこにいるんだな。そこにいて自分と戦おうとしているんだな。
The woman nodded. Then my goal was clear. I had to follow and help her in the fight.
他に何かご質問は？
いや、僕はもういい。ありがとう。本当に助かった。
Anyway, I had to go after her as fast as possible. A voice reached me from behind as I tried to exit the room.
お兄さん、ちょっとリリスとお話ししたいことがあるの。
Huh?
あら、サマエル、何でしょうか？
Oh. Huh. Samael answered Lilith's refined smile with a hearty grin.
なんか黙っていることあるよね。
Huh? She pressed her scythe against Lilith's neck.
サマエル、よせ。
お兄さんはちょっと黙ってて。病弱のリリスさん、知っていることをすべて異彩合切吐き出して。
それは。
I heard a warning signal go off inside my mind as Lilith parted her lips. Did I finally master the sixth sense, or was it already pre-installed within my cells? Either way, I felt a shudder so violent it almost crushed my spine. I chose action over comprehension. Before a nanosecond could pass, I jumped forward, catching Lilith in my arms, and we both fell prone to the floor. The window shattered to pieces, a lightning rod now sticking out of the bed, at the very place Lilith used to sit. I managed to get her out of danger by a hair. Or not, as I witnessed several strands dance through the air. I could see a woman outside the window, a woman in a white kimono, Raziel of Thunder, also known as Messenger. The two jumped outside the shattered window. I used that time to escape the room with Lilith in my arms. She gave me an obedient nod. Apparently she realized she was little use in battle, having lost her powers. Lilith gave me a tender smile. It looked nothing like the Lilith I knew. That fact filled me with an odd sense of loneliness. I returned to the room and jumped out the window. I could spot 3 vague shapes already waging battle in the hospital's airspace. Samael, who was fighting Messenger at close quarters, lurched backward. Cerberus breathed flame from all 3 of his heads. The peaceful urban scenery gave way to a sight from hell itself. A raging inferno now blanketed the skies. Yet to the fiery flames that turned everything they touched to ash, Messenger just... The electric blade sliced through the fire as if it were no more than butter. Messenger didn't even bother to move out of her position. Messenger thrust her sword at Samael. She managed to parry it somehow, but that was it. A giant scythe against a giant lightning rod. Neither could be called wieldly weapons. Still, the two had spent their lives mastering them. At this point, the weapons were like extensions of their own limbs. The pros and cons of their wieldiness mattered little to the two at this point. Therefore, Samael was losing badly. The difference in their strength was too great. She was too slow. Messenger disappeared from Samael's sight. The next moment she reappeared behind her back, the electric blade pressed tight against the fallen angel's neck. An impulse ran through the entirety of Samael's body, forcibly stopping her breathing, depriving her heart of the freedom to beat. She probably thought to finish Samael off, but I would never allow that to happen. The Mirror Knight let its body shatter. Countless shards scattered across the battlefield, causing thousands of Samaels to appear in the sky. Messenger picked one of the pieces and pierced it with her lightning weapon. Apparently, she didn't understand the knavish nature of the Picati sword. The Mirror Knight that summoned illusions, the silver line that neutralized all attacks with its howls. When combined, the two would form a mirror that, when shattered, would reflect all damage that came their way. I rallied with an attack of my own. There was no time to exchange words. I couldn't care less about what she was scheming at this point. In any case, given her powers, it would have likely been impossible to immobilize her with a non-lethal method. I couldn't afford mercy with such an opponent. I took a deep breath. I hoped to bring about the result of my desire with the words I weaved.
僕打ち果たす
いっそ
異彩承知サマエル行くぞ
Cerberus picked up Samael with one of his mouths and fled. Messenger turned in their direction, but I made sure to brandish my Bacati sword menacingly and draw her attention away from them.
あなたを一人で戦う気ですか？
何か問題が
She made a smile so vehement I felt my sanity creak under its terrifying touch.
あります。あなたがこんな場所に来なければ、あなたを試す道もあったでしょうね。残念。本当に残念です。新世界のアダムになるべき人間がこんな場所で私に殺され、ただの苦肉になるのが本当に残念です。
それは笑いながら言うセリフじゃないだろう。
あら、失礼。
Messenger covered her lips with a hand. It didn't change much as I could still tell she was smiling from her eyes.
それでは参ります。覚悟は不要です。
The next moment, my spine turned to ice. A bad premonition was taking hold of my body. I felt as if my heart would burst from unadulterated terror. I had no time to react, much less do something with my sword to protect myself. A lump of meat was missing from my right shoulder, as if a beast had tried to feast from it. Yet it didn't hurt much. Rather, it didn't hurt at all. A strike that exceeded the speed of sound by far. Though the scariest thing about it was not the speed itself, but the initiation and acceleration of the attack. It didn't take a second for her to reach her max speed. Likely she only needed a single step to accelerate to her full. Ordering the nanomachines to fix my ruined shoulder, I slowly turned around. Messenger had an eerie smile on her lips. I felt the sight surreal, as if I were trapped inside a dream. Her right leg moved slightly. That alone was enough to turn my spine to ice again, and she didn't fail to notice my reaction.
風星閣僚、あなたはすでに敗北したの。私がただ失踪するだけであなたに防ぐ術はない。それを思い知ったでしょう。
Yeah, I certainly did. And I was in the middle of coming up with a countermeasure to break her lightning flight.
次は首をはねます。人たちでそうすれば、天使たる私の情けと知りなさい。
I considered all the martial arts I knew one by one. I checked the techniques that masters among masters weaved under the inspiration of their unparalleled genius. I had to find, comprehend, and write the technique down to my very cells, a technique that was indomitable regardless of the opponent's speed. I moved the moment Messenger stepped forward. She told me she'd go for my head, and therefore her movements were very easy to read. I already knew how fast she could be, and also how predictable. I imbued my nerve cells with electricity from my Takamikazuchi and let the Bacati sword fly into the air. I raised my arms, shifted my hands, and lowered my head. That should be enough to ruin her plan. The unarguable mightiest swordsmanship technique to be born in the world of men. A move that no speed, no power could ever topple. The brainchild of the master swordsman Kami-Izumi Nobatsuna.
丸星
Breathe through your opponent's motion and counter with an evasive roll. Dodging her attack, I caught one of her arms mid-motion and wrapped mine around it like a snake. I used her own weight and inertia to fling her away. The Bacati sword fell down from the sky right at that moment, and catching it, I promptly summoned the Beast of Gluttony. Purple lightning pierced the sky, splitting the giant beast in two. An astonished look on Messenger's face, for I, who was supposed to be hiding behind the monster, was missing. She could not find me neither above nor below herself. But then where was I? I jumped outside the jaws of the dying beast, covering the distance to her very bosom in an instant, beast's blood splashing around in my wake. The sharp blade of my weapon fell straight on her. Giving her no time to counterattack, I proceeded to hack relentlessly. Messenger's attacks were incredibly fast. Merely comparing them to lightning did them no justice, for they were lightning itself. Messenger, or rather Raziel, was an angel of thunder, like the archangel Uriel. But while Uriel embodied the thunder's power in the form of an all-destroying flame, Messenger took the form of a lightning blast instead. Once in the past, she obliterated a whole army of Assyrians in a single night, burning all of their bodies to ash, leaving only their clothes and weapons intact. And she possessed insane speed and acceleration. At this point, one could easily liken her to light. Her name, as the Mercy of God, was a phony exterior. In truth, she was among the most belligerent and destructive of God's servants.
一子旋風、先ほどの詫びとして眼球をいただきましょう。
The next moment, the electric blue of the blade took the entirety of my vision. I tried to dodge to little avail. Her blade invaded my right eyeball next to the pupil and sliced the left one in two. I had to give up on regaining my vision. It would have taken about an hour to fix the damage, and so the notion was unrealistic in the middle of the fight.
さあ、こちらです。
I was about to point my sword at the direction of her voice, but stopped myself. I could hear her laugh reach me from below and from above, from left and right, from everywhere around me. So she decided to play with my mind. Not to gain advantage in battle, but to have some fun.
そうだ。
Her lightning rod pierced my back. Just a light jab. She must have been thinking herself a cat playing with a mouse. No, wait. She might be wary of the role I did before. That technique was effective against everyone in any situation. It didn't matter much to it if its wielder was blind. And so Messenger was faced with a tough decision. Should she maximize her speed and cleave my head off, or should she be careful and keep to the speed she could still control herself at? And I knew what she would choose. My vision wouldn't return for a while, and so rather than betting everything on one risky maneuver, it made more sense to bleed me out little by little through a safer approach instead. The multitude of infinite possibilities converged to a single one. A slice at my arm. A slice at my thigh. One after another, she proceeded to carve me like a roast chicken.
ナブルに飽きました。
I could hear a slight unease in her voice. She wasn't getting tired, she was just anxious to end this already. And so she would never choose to go after my neck. She was too worried I could predict that. I myself, on the other hand, stood motionless, protecting my neck with a hand. This gave her but one place to aim if she wanted to end the fight. If she couldn't reach my neck, she would go for the
こ
heart.
れで終わり。
I could feel the air shake slightly, and her lightning rod pierced my chest. Messenger's astonished voice reverberated across the sky. Everything went according to plan.
まさか。
I had enough time to steel my heart, and I knew she would aim at my breast, so I tasked all of my nanomachines with strengthening my chest muscles and contracted them the moment I felt the blade invade my body. Oh, fuck. The Bacati sword flew through the air, far from us already. I grabbed her weapon instead. The next moment, vigor filled my muscles and I yanked the lightning rod out of her hands. Then, turning it around, I decided to return the favor. Ooh, death by her own weapon. A chilly gust of wind ran across the sky. The tables turned in a split second. It all happened so fast she was still unable to comprehend the outcome.
そうでしょ。
現実だ。メッセンジャー。
Her countenance warped into a mask of fury. She's still likely hoping to escape the unprecedented situation. She desperately tugged on the sword in an attempt to draw it from her chest. An average angel would already be dead after receiving such a wound. She might have been exceptional, but her struggle was still hopeless. Bereft of her ability to fly, she plunged down towards the sea. And suddenly the blood's gone. She still desperately clung to the lightning rod sticking out of her chest, which is non-existent in this cutscene. A weak, fading voice. She probably didn't have enough strength left to scream anymore. All that would result from getting the sword out at this point would be more blood loss for her. Her internal organs must have been in tatters. There was no hope left in that suffering and pain. It wasn't the kind of torment one had to bear through to survive. It was unadulterated pain that only tortured you before the inevitable end.
諦めろ。メッセンジャー。
She looked at me with unbelieving eyes.
どうして私がこんな場所で死ななくては。
裏切り者には裏切り者らしい末路があるということだろう。
She was without a doubt a traitor to this world.
ものを裏切ったのに、あの怪異届くはずだったのに。
怪異
She confessed her reckless dream.
大天使長、あのミカエルがいた場所へ届くはずだった。きっと届くはずだった。だから何もかもを投げ打って裏切った。
Well, here's the thing, Messenger. God's an asshole. Well, I mean, wait a minute. God's a system, so... Michael, the Archistrategos, Master of all angels, whose name read as he was like God. She was envious of his prominence.
裏切って殺して、それでも夢のために全てを。死にたくない。死にたくないの。お願い、お願い、お願い、助けて、助けてよ。
A shameful display, an end befitting a traitor.
すまない。僕には何もできない。
Messenger froze. I clasped her cold hand. I thought about leaving her alone, but realizing that it would be too cruel even for someone of her deeds, I decided to stay with her to the end. Her last hope, and thus fixation on life, suddenly waned.
私は死ぬのですね。
I gave her a silent nod.
彼女に圧倒されてしまった。恐怖し、崇拝の念すら抱いてしまった。
Well,
罪を犯すことより、彼女の敵となることの方が。
she was just all too terrifying, she said, though she failed to mention whom she was referring to. She then looked at me with a tenderness in her eyes.
天道刹那、手を離しなさい。
しかし、
あなたの温かさは私にふさわしくないわ。
She placed her shaking hand on my cheek and then lightly pushed at my chest.
さあ、
There was a resolved look in her eyes, allowing for no backtalk. I stood up in silence and, giving a small bow, turned my back on her. I wondered if it was compassion or pity, or maybe something imprinted into the very human soul that made it so hard to leave the sight of someone on death's door. Still, she refused my company. It was a kind of penance on her part. No one had the right to refuse her wish. She felt pain no longer. The torturous cold, along with the shivers, finally left her body. As the terror she felt for her imminent death dissipated, she was overtaken by idle thoughts. The plan was perfect. Her own death might not have been accounted for, but she would be misguided to imagine that she was ever was a part of her schemes. That woman always acted alone. She never felt afraid of antagonizing and facing the whole world all alone. She was a powerful monster that could afford such a blasphemy. And that was why she felt so attracted to her. Not to her physical shape or ideal, but to the unadulterated horror she instilled in everyone's hearts. And so she couldn't imagine. She couldn't imagine a way to defeat her. Even her old lord failed to. A vile woman that didn't give up for thousands of years, scheming and scheming from the very deepest layer of hell. But it no longer mattered. There was no use pondering her any longer. Irresistible sleep overtook her, making her wish for little else. There was nothing left she had to do. There was nothing left for her to do. Having lost everything, she was now an empty shell.
一つだけあった。
A boy who delivered her an unfair end, and so returned her back to her true self. Tendao Setsuna. She would pray for his success. Not to the heavens or God. A supplication directed solely at herself.
汝の居場所は天にも地にもなく、ただ人々の間をさまようもの。汝の輝きは決して汚されず、汝の魂は決して果てん。
Her sight dimmed. Her ears could no longer pick up sound. Yet still she continued her prayer with a wavering voice.
汝はとこしえを打ち果たすもの。 汝は悪を断じる者。どうか汝の道筋に光がありますように。
She could finally utter a prayer for someone. This tiny gesture, of course, would not change the fact of her abominable history. But at least she got a chance to do something for another in the very end. There was nothing left for her to do. She did away with her hopes and despair. She had no regrets. She closed her eyes. She took her last breath. The taste of death was that of copper. Well, shit. The story has a very good way of making you understand well, not really much understand, but actually, yeah, it has a good way of helping you understand some of the villains and all that, even giving them some sort of redemption. Or not really much of a redemption, but something that kind of makes you not hate them as much. Even Metatron, that asshole, but I can already feel the effects of the medicine kicking in. I need to go to sleep. So, sorry that this video is a little bit shorter, but if you guys like this, be sure to let me know. Oh god, I still got a lot of stuff to do, but thank you guys so much for watching, and this was good. This was good, and I'll see you guys in the next video.